All right. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Tell us your name, where you're from, and how old you are.
My name is Stacy. I'm from Pearl, Mississippi, and I'm a whole 31 years old.
All right. And what was the point of saying yes to this interview?
I wanted to do this interview because I feel like there's a lot of people that have just accepted defeat. You know, they've tried a couple of times to get sober, to change their life, and they failed, and they said, hey, this is just how I'm going to be. And so I've accepted this defeat, and I've been there. And if I can make it out of what I made it out of, then I feel like anybody can.
Love it. You have a sobriety date?
My sobriety date is June 15th, 2015.
That's awesome. All right. Skipping over that question. Let's see. All right. So, as an addict, what drugs have you used?
I did not discriminate. I have used literally every drug except for PCP and ketamine. But I did have crystal meth was my drug of choice.
Okay. All right. Can you describe your history of drug use, so where it started and how it evolved?
I think the first time that I ever used drugs, I smoked pot when I was 14. I don't remember anything really crazy happening. It was my drug use when it started out was always more about wanting people to hold this certain respect for me. So if I could do crazy hardcore things and they're like, oh, she's really amazing and cool and different. And then, you know, like if they could all like me, then I kind of felt like I could like myself, because I really struggled with that even as a kid. But I started with the weed, then it went to drinking, then it was weed and drinking and pills. And then I guess probably junior, senior year of high school, I started with ecstasy, crystal meth, cocaine, and then just this sample platter of whatever was on the table, man. Whatever it was, you know, you could tell me, you could hand me a random pill with no identification, and I'd be like, let's do it. I don't even know what it is, but let's do it.
So crystal meth was the number one.
Crystal meth was the thing. Once I finally barely graduated high school, I went and found a group of friends, and that was what they did, so that was what I did.
Was it the easiest to get?
Around Jackson, it really was. That and weed, and maybe some benzos were always full supply. So it was pretty easy to get.
In your addiction, what do you think you lost?
Wow. Okay. So I got sober once when I was 22. And so from 14 to 22, you know, I didn't have a lot to lose tangibly. I didn't have cars, you know, houses, a lot of money, anything like that. And I didn't have a whole lot of morals, you know. It was just like, whatever, man, like whatever goes. So what I feel like I lost the most, and I really honestly had strained relationships with my family even up to that point. I was a hard kid, man. I was difficult. I was rebellious. But I will say that what relationship I did have with my family was completely deteriorated in that time. I lost a lot of relationships with my friends that I had gone to school with a little bit. And then I had opportunities for scholarships and college and employment opportunities. And I could never stay sober long enough. So then this last time, June 15th, 2015, what I had lost up until that point after getting sober the first time was literally everything. You know, I had a good job. I had saved some money. I had a car. I had built up a lot of trust in my community with my family, and all that went away. But what I feel like I lost, that was the most significant, I had gained peace with God. I had a relationship with God. I had that sense of fulfillment. You know, I always tried to fabricate that through substances, and I never could. I finally had found real peace and joy and an intimate relationship with God. And when I relapsed, that was completely gone, and that was probably the scariest place that I've ever been.
Yeah, let's see. So then, talking about scary places. Yeah. Can you give me a specific story of trauma, and kind of mostly in a point where drugs had taken over?
Right. So the biggest trauma in my life, and there's been several, but I had been dating this guy in high school. We've been dating probably 2.5 years. And I had just graduated high school, and long story short, he took his life. one night, and I was the only one in the room with him when it happened. Literally, the last thing he said to me was, "I bet you won't watch me do it." Pow! Pulled the trigger. And he literally landed on top of me after he did it, shot himself in the left temple with a .22. So I had his blood in my mouth. It was in my eyelashes. It was in between the beads on my bracelet, you know. And even after rushing down the stairs, call 911, do everything they can, you know, he didn't make it through that. So watching that was like out of a movie. Like, that doesn't happen to normal people, right? But if that wasn't bad enough on its own, you know, all of his friends were my friends, and my friends were over there because I had left my life to join his. And so there was, everybody blamed me for it, right? It was in a time that I thought, hey, we're all going to come together, we're going to love each other, we're going to make it through this. It's all your fault, you horrible person, you did this. You know, I had people would come by my house and scream things at me. I got run off the road one time. His father came to my house with a gun and was like, hey, I'm going to kill your kid. I wasn't allowed to go to the funeral. I mean, it was absolutely awful. And to add to that, you know, we had been arguing that night. So, of course, I felt like it was my fault, or like I could have done something differently. And I kind of felt like the only way that I could honor him and show all these people that were blaming me that I was absolutely dying on the inside was to be this sad, little broken, jaded girl forever. Because, you know, like, I felt like I had to show the world that I was hurting too. And so that was a line for me. Because before that, drugs were an option. If you had it, I'll do it. Hey, that's cool. But I wasn't going to go spend all my money on it. It wasn't the first thing I thought about. You know, I wasn't going to sacrifice a whole lot to get high. But after that night happened, I crossed that line. And I was like, who are you? Where do we have to go? It doesn't even matter who you are. Just tell me where to be. What do you got? You know, and that was just the beginning of a horrible process for me.
How did your family handle your addiction?
You know, there's a lot I don't know, because I would not stay at the house. Like, if I was actively getting high, I was as far away from home as I could be. So there's a lot that I didn't get to see, but what I did get to see, I lived mainly with my dad and my stepmom. You know, they were the ones I lived with for most of my life, and they were kind of like opposing forces, because my stepmom, I think, could tell way early in the game, Stacy's a drug addict, you know, and my dad was like, no, she just got bad friends, right? She's just going through a phase, and I'm type 1 diabetic, and so my stepmom was like, we're enabling her when we let her come home, take a shower, get rested, and then send her on her way. And my dad was like, yeah, but I can't completely deny her because she's going to die. Because I literally was not taking care of my health at all. So it's like two very real things were kind of clashing heads. So it was kind of this various cycles of stepmom trying to put the foot down. Hey, we're not going to help you unless you really want to get help. Like, they did really good in always making it known that if I was serious about getting help, that they would help me. But my stepmom was like, you know, we can't keep doing all these things and helping you in all these ways when all we're really doing is enabling you. So we just went through a process back and forth of, okay, you can come home for a little while. Oh no, you got to leave. You won't do right. And so I had a horrific car wreck. I think was 2009. Ripped my whole face in half, and it was that point for both of them where they realized we are absolutely powerless, because they tried to fix me. They just wanted to fix me, take me to the counselor, take me to the pastor, you know, give her these structured guidelines for her days. Like, I was going to follow that. But after that car wreck and almost dying, they both realized the only thing they can do is put me in God's hands, and stop hoping in me and begin to just hope in God. And they completely withdrew their help from me at that point. And that was the beginning of the end of me realizing y'all are the only ones that care for me.
So, give me the process of stopping. Why did you stop? When did it happen?
Okay. The first time that I got sober was right after the car wreck, and I had gone through Teen Challenge. And that, I mean, you know, my dad offered it to me. He said it was a year long. I was like, absolutely not. That's an eternity. You know, but when I got desperate enough, I did go. And I stayed the whole year, and I built that spiritual foundation. And that's absolutely pivotal for me in my recovery, is my spiritual foundation. And so I had a good foundation, but I also walked away from that program thinking that addiction is a moral deficiency. So good people, they don't do drugs or drink, and then like these bad, awful people, they do drugs and they drink. So I was like, I got my life together. I'm good now. You know, I'm a good person. I'll never deal with that again. So went home and didn't do anything to upkeep my recovery. And so slowly over time, you know, I slid right back into addiction. So after I finally hit my rock bottom there, which is more of a mental and spiritual rock bottom for me, my dad offered me rehab. And he didn't say, hey, I'll buy you a car, I'll do all these things for you. He didn't promise me anything. He just said, will you please go to rehab? And that was the first time I went to a 12-step facility. And so then I was introduced to the disease concepts. I was introduced to phenomenon craving, the mental obsession, the 12 steps, the whole recovery community thing. And so I had to have spiritual, and then I had to have the 12-step part of it, and understanding what it means to be an addict, and what recovery really could look like, and that I wanted it to look like in my life. And then from that point, just staying so connected with people that were like-minded.
That's awesome. Okay. So now that you've gone through recovery, and you give me an instance, where are you now? Like, what are you doing now?
I feel like I'm doing big things. You know, after I got out of, I did 90 days. So I did primary and then I did secondary, and got out, just got whatever kind of job I could, but I was grateful to do anything. I had a little dirt cheap job, like I straightened the shoes. I was a shoe straightener, and I was so good at it. But I knew I wanted to help people, and so I started applying at the same treatment center that I went through. And at 9 months clean, they hired me on. Amazing, such an answer to a prayer. And I stayed there for 3.5 years. Eventually became a recovery support specialist, so I was meeting with clients and you know, doing some groups and stuff like that. And it was awesome. I loved it, but I knew I wanted more. So I started going back to school in 2017, and it took me 13 years to get an associate's degree, right? 2-year degree took me 13 years because I wanted to get out. But I got my associate's degree in May of this last year, and so I made a tough decision last year to resign from my job and be a full-time student at Mississippi State. So I'm going after my master's degree in clinical mental health. Got 3 years left, and I want to go back on the front lines. You know, I want to go back into treatment centers or somewhere where I can really get in the trenches with people that are going through what I've been through, because I get it. You know, like I really get it. And with my recovery, you know, meetings on a weekly basis are a must for me, and staying super plugged in my relationship with God and with my circle of friends, you know, that build me up, encourage me, call me out, you know, on things in my life that they see that could potentially be dangerous for me. And I love my family, man. I have great relationships with my family. I got a lot going on, and it's, you know, 5 years ago, I was putting my mascara on in the trap house, right? Like in between the big drug dealers, the big wads of crack cocaine and the Glocks on the table, and it was average, man. It was nothing to me, you know. And so being able to look back and see those things is so amazing. Anytime I feel like life is normal or mundane, like I can look back at those moments and be like, I'm doing big things. Like I feel really good about where I'm at with my recovery. And drugs and alcohol, I'm not going to say that I never ever think about them, but it's very few and far between. And when I do think of them, it's not in a craving kind of way, more so of, oh yeah, that was a part of my life one time.
So then knock at the door, temptation, what would happen if you used again?
If I don't even have to guess because I did that. I've gone through a relapse, and I relapsed from being a primary meth user. You know, alcohol wasn't my thing, right? And I hear so many people say that, but I said it too. And so when I decided that, I remember asking God, I was like, I feel like I could drink. I feel like I could be one of those people. So I prayed and I asked, and I waited like 3 minutes, and God didn't answer. I was like, God, you think too long, you know? I feel like it's okay for me. And so I drank once with healthy people, right? People that don't smoke crack when they drink. It was amazing. But so I had one drink, and it was fine. Then I had another drink, and it was fine. And then I had another, and then I wanted to do it more, and wanted to drink more and more often. And so what happens for me when I get high one time, when I drink one time, I fool myself into thinking that I can handle it, and my shock factor goes down, and more things become okay, and I end up, oh, now there's a bag of dope in front of my face. And I've let so many little things slide that doesn't look like such a big deal. And I end up right back where I started from. Because family, school, God, when I start getting high, those things, I don't think about those things anymore. Those are no longer my priority. Like, I've never had the ability, like when I'm using, that is all that I am doing, right? Like, I'm not holding a job down. I'm not holding a relationship down. I can't even eat right or shower right because all I am doing is getting high. And so I know that if I were to just try it one time, it would never end there.
So we don't participate in a lot of the faith-oriented things. What are some tools that you use in your faith that have kept you sober and happy?
So I'm very involved in my church, and I've never been the type to just go and sit and get up and leave. Like, I got to be in there, like, doing things. Like, I like to be active in service and helping, even if it's directing traffic, into the parking lot, or leading a small group. Like, I like to be super involved. It's the same way with meetings for me. Like, I don't want to just go and sit. Like, I want to really do things. And so celebrate recovery is my primary, I guess, how I get fed in my recovery. And that way I'm able to incorporate my relationship with God and with Jesus and the Bible and the 12 steps all together, and nurturing that relationship every day with God, getting in there, spending adequate time really connecting with Him and listening for His voice, keeping the Word always on my mind because it always hits me in the situations where I really need it. It keeps my passion. It keeps me motivated. It keeps me always remembering who's actually in control of my life and who is there to carry the burden that I've always tried to carry my whole life. I truly believe that God has the power to completely remove my addiction from me, but I don't think He ever will, because I think that He is using it as a tool to keep me dependent on Him, which is really where I'm most satisfied. So it's like that thorn in my flesh, and I think that God is leaving it there because it is accomplishing a greater purpose.
That's awesome. All right, so now, if you had some advice for somebody who's currently and actively in addiction, what would you tell them?
Go to rehab. Go to rehab. And this is why I think that I learned early in recovery that a lot of times the thing that we want to do the least is often the thing that helps us the most. And for me, like, surrendering my freedom was the last thing that I wanted to do. Like, I spent a year in teen challenge. They're not going to teach me nothing, right? But like when I finally went back to treatment, I was like, oh, I don't know anything about anything. But there was so much momentum built up behind my lifestyle, my using, just things that had become habitual for me. There's so much momentum and force behind it that going to rehab was like a mental restart button. Like, I felt like I got to start everything over. I was safe. I was protected. I got educated. It was like a fresh start for me both times that I went. So someone currently in addiction, that would be my advice for them. That, and face your trauma. Face your trauma. Face your pain from the past. Whether you think it's little or big, face it, because it is still affecting you if you've never really gone through it.
Is there anything else you want to add on there? Anything on your brain?
Never think that your problems are too insignificant to reach out to somebody else for help. like, even if, hey, I just had a bad day, you know, if there's ever a time where you feel weak, you feel confused, you know, reach out to somebody, because that's really where it's at for me, because I'll get stuck in my head, I'll follow a rabbit trail, and I'll be way on a dark little island somewhere, mentally and emotionally, when I try to live this life by myself. And so, you know, use the tools of recovery, use the people in recovery, because I know when I'm able to help somebody else, that blesses me.
For those people that get frustrated after, you know, they go out there and they reach out to a friend, and that person doesn't want to be a part of those questions that they're, you know, that they have trying to be a part, what would you tell those people that failed the first time?
I guess don't let that be something that totally throws you off. You know, like, don't let that one person's response to you be a filter for every other person that you think might be able to help you. And like I said kind of earlier, you know, a key element of my recovery is being surrounded by people that are like-minded, that I know are there for me. So it's also going to be up to every individual to make sure that you are proactive in creating a circle around you. You know, if you just got one person that you feel like you can call and that person's not there for you, you know, you're going to be in a tight spot. But there's meetings all over the place, man. There's churches all over the place. Whatever avenue you choose to go down, there really is a circle of people that want to be there for others. You just gotta dig your heels in order to get there and find it.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, thanks for doing that with us.
Absolutely.